This episode of XNA Roundup is sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
Hey folks, what is up? Welcome back to the XNA Roundup Show. This is episode number 27, and I'm your host, Nick the Dude. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Here at XNA Roundup headquarters, we find the best games on the Xbox Live community games section and give you the rundown on what's worth playing each and every week. As always, support XNA Roundup by subscribing to our show via iTunes or YouTube. You can also link or embed our videos on your blog, Twitter, or Facebook page. Before we get started, I just want to say a quick thank you to our viewers for all the great feedback we've been getting, especially our online survey, which a ton of people filled out. We couldn't believe it. A ton of great feedback. Thank you so much for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and it's just going to make the show better, so thanks a lot. We've also had a great response to our Kodu Game Lab episode, so look for a special video with contest details coming out soon. So this week we're getting back to business and looking at two new releases into the community games catalog. First up, we're checking out Lotus Stellar Conflict, a new top-down shooter that boasts a 10-mission story-driven campaign mode. And after that, we spotlight Nebulon, the retro shooter with a great look and feel and a cool weapon upgrade system. Let's get right into the reviews. We will see you on the other side. A common problem I've been finding with an increasing number of games in the community section is that while they have a solid base mechanic, they generally aren't fleshed out enough with different modes and additional features to give gamers cause to keep coming back. Lotus Stellar Conflict, a new top-down space shooter, actually has the opposite problem. While there's a 10-mission story mode which you can play single-player or co-op over Xbox Live and a multiplayer or single-player skirmish mode, my main problem with Lotus was that I found the space combat gameplay severely lacking. You have an auto-targeting laser and some auto-targeting missiles which seem to auto-target the fun and challenge right out of the game. The controls were floaty and the camera was a whole other mess entirely. More often than not, the camera was so far away you weren't sure which ship was yours and which ship was your wingman's. If they would have angled the development of this game as a more Star Trek-y tactical space RPG, it might have worked, but playing it up as some kind of space shooter is just setting people up to be disappointed. The 10-mission story mode narrative is told through voiceover with accompanying blocks of text, as well as some in-game voiceover of conversations between you and your wingman. It's hard to get into the story and identify with a character when all you have been shown is their voice and the spaceship they pilot. Imagine watching an episode of Star Trek where every shot was an exterior of the Starship Enterprise, with random voices talking to advance the plot. One element I did appreciate was the resource allocation control, allowing you to quickly shift energy between engines, shields, and weapons by pushing the right analog stick in a corresponding direction. The homing missiles were really something to behold. You would fire one or two, and they would completely miss their mark, then they would loop back around and miss again. I can safely say that is something I've never seen in a video game, and with any luck, we'll never see again. I recognize the work and effort that went into the game, but unless you really love the combat in the demo, at 400 points, I would pass on Lotus Stellar Conflict. Hey folks, Nick the Dude here. I just want to tell you I'm putting together the show right now, and I realized, oh my god, I forgot the GoDaddy ad. It's such a great deal, I had to get it in. It's 20% off hosting for 1, 2, or 3 years. And it's only good until August 31st, so you gotta act quick. And anyways, this really helps out the show. The code is XNA20H. It's on the screen right now. Help yourself out, help the show out, everyone wins. Thanks a lot, guys. Back to the show. Unlike Lotus Stellar Conflict, Nebulon is an honest-to-goodness shooter, and a darn good one at that. While its Geometry Wars-esque art style leads a player to expect a two-stick shooter, Nebulon actually flips the script and goes, well, I guess 1.5 stick if that's possible. While you're moving, you can only fire straight ahead, but once you stop, you can control an aiming reticle with your right stick and aim in all directions. I'm half thinking the developers chose this setup just to be a little bit different and separate their game from the mountain of two-stick shooters out there. Whatever the reason, after you get past the initial learning curve and move into a more Gears of War-ish stop-and-pop mentality, the game gets very fun and very addictive. Probably my favorite part of Nebulon is the weapon progression. You pick up little power-up orbs left behind by vanquished enemies, which then build up on the lower part of your screen. Once you reach a certain number, you can upgrade your weapon, and once you upgrade your weapon enough, you unlock the next weapon, like the plasma gun. Then you can start to upgrade that. You can also use a limited bomb weapon to destroy all enemies on the level. The sound and visual explosion when you blow enemies up is super satisfying. The art style and character design is simple but really nice to look at. And I like how the tougher enemies are created by combining multiple weaker enemies. The psychedelic backgrounds are really cool as well, and I love how they subtly interact with what is happening in the foreground. I also appreciated, although I was at the same time really annoyed with the trioid enemy type that would actually eat your power-ups if you couldn't get to them quick enough. Damn trioids. I was pretty bummed to see some fairly significant graphical slowdown occur, most noticeably when the worm enemy types were on screen. But I'm hopeful this can be corrected with an update down the line. I also would have appreciated a little more in the way of documentation, pretty much anything to provide some guidance into the subtleties of the game. Dying definitely sucks because there's no continue, but for some reason it's actually not too bad to go all the way back and start from scratch. Once you accept the devastating loss of your 4-shot plasma gun, that is. Overall, Nebulon is a well-polished and addicting game that keeps it simple, but also has some depth with weapon progression. Such a great value for 200 points, you should probably just go get it right now. Alright folks, that is our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can get show updates at twitter.com/XNA Roundup, and you can email questions, comments, or suggestions to xnaroundup@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.